The 1975 intermediate-sized cars are on the scene. There's something about a new car that brings out that inner glow of pride a man reserves for very special occasions. But sometimes, unforeseen circumstances can turn a man's pride and joy into a twisted nightmare. Fortunately, there are ways to restore beauty. Just like there are ways to correct the little things that can get under an owner's skin. Whether major or minor, it takes a specialist to do the job right. Remember, it began here on the drawing board several years ago. After all the parts were designed, a graphic illustrator took hundreds of drawings and created a composite showing the various parts in their relative sizes and relationship to each other. Finally, a mock-up was built. This is a side buck for the 75 intermediate two-door hardtop. A prototype of the window mechanism was tested thousands of times before it was approved for production. The result? A simple system which is easy to adjust. Let's take a closer look. This is the single-post guidance system, very similar to the system used in full-size two-door hardtops. There are very few parts. And only two assemblies move when the window is raised, the regulator and the lift channel. These three nuts, when loosened, allow the window to be adjusted fore and aft and tilted. The lift plate has two square holes and an elongated slot. The square holes combined with the slot allow the glass to be tilted and moved fore and aft. Let's go through the window adjustments. Incidentally, all the window adjustments can be made from inside the car with the door closed. After the three nuts are loosened, the window can be adjusted to fit the weather strip. For in and out adjustment, loosen the nuts on the lower tube guide. Move the belt line trim support bracket inboard or outboard so that the plastic liners engage the upstop hooks on the plate and channel assembly. Push the glass outboard until it contacts the lower lip of the outer belt line weather strip. When it does, move the stabilizers in until they contact the glass and tighten the screws. Move the glass in or out and retighten the nuts on the guide retainer. When the glass is in the full-up position, the hooks hold the glass against the weather strip. When the glass is lowered, the hooks are disengaged and the stabilizers keep the glass from rattling. Raise the glass until it seals into the weather strip and tighten the upstop screws. Notice the downstop is a solid piece of rubber. If you have to replace it, remove the old downstop. Insert the tab into the slot and pull it into position. Electric door locks are optional on intermediate-sized cars this year. There are two adjustments, and they're both simple. To adjust the outside door handle unlatching mechanism, insert an Allen wrench into the access hole and loosen the screw. Reach inside and move the mechanism link up enough to take out the slack. Retighten the screw. When the locking button is pushed down, the contacts in the switch are closed. This completes a circuit and energizes the solenoids in both doors. So pushing either front door locking button causes all the doors to lock. If the switch does not activate the circuit when the locking button is pushed down, you'll have to adjust the solenoid. With the locking button in the up position, loosen the solenoid attaching screws. The weight of the solenoid will cause it to move down. After it does, retighten the screws. That's all there is to it. Now let's get into quarter glass windows. Incidentally, power windows are required with operable quarter windows. The quarter window mechanism is a new design. For example, here's the regulator. Notice the arm is hinged. This is necessary to accommodate the movements of the slider in a confined space. Let's start from scratch and put a quarter window together. We'll use the side buck so you can get a better idea of what's going on when we put the thing back together. Let's say you got a car back from the bump shop and go from there. Put the upstops in first. Put the nuts on, but keep them loose. Install the lower sill bracket. Keep the screws loose. Put in the pivot channel. Tighten the 2 bolts. Attach the track assembly to the glass plate. Insert the plastic slides on the glass plate into the flared ends of the tracks. Install the assembly through the upper access hole. And put in the 2 bolts through the top of the inner panel. Keep them loose. Next, bolt it to the lower sill bracket, loosely. We'll need an outside source of electricity to run the power window motor, so we'll use a 12-volt battery. Run the regulator down until the arm is against the motor. Then back up 1/2 inch. Insert the regulator through the large access hole. Insert the inboard slide into the pivot channel. Next, slide the outboard slide into the glass lift channel. Screw the 3 bolts into the regulator and tighten them. Run the regulator until the glass plate is halfway up. Insert the glass through the belt opening and position the studs through the slots in the glass plate. Run the glass all the way up. Screw nuts onto the 3 studs loose. Install the stabilizer. Push it out against the glass so that the glass contacts the outside belt seal. Tighten the bolt. Put the downstop in and screw the nut on loosely. The slot and the 2 square holes in the glass plate are for fore and aft and tilt adjustments. Line up the vertical edge of the quarter glass with the front door glass. There should be a space about 3/8 of an inch wide between the 2. Next, tighten the 3 nuts on the glass plate. Move the top of the track assembly in or out to seal the top of the glass against the roof rail seal. Tighten the 2 bolts at the top of the track assembly to hold the seal position. Tighten the track assembly bolt to the sill bracket and the lower sill bracket to the body. Position the upstops against the glass plate assembly and tighten the nuts. Lower the glass until it is flush with the belt line molding. Raise the downstop against the regulator arm and tighten the nut. Run the glass up and down to check for interference. That's all there is to it. Here's a tip on window regulators. In some cases, it is no longer necessary to remove the regulator assembly when the motor is inoperative. However, if the motor must be removed, here's how to do it. This counterbalance spring is under a great tension. If you remove the motor without locking the sector in a vise first, the spring would be free to transmit its force to the sector. Put the regulator into the vise with the straight edge of the body flush against the top of the vise jaw. The sector is held by the 2 jaws when you tighten the vise. Now you may remove the motor. A word of caution, however. Do not remove the regulator from the vise until you have reinstalled the motor. Fixed quarter glass window adjustments will be covered in the reference book. This is the 4-door sedan and station wagon front door. Adjustments include positioning of glass on the plate and channel assembly, glass track, stabilizer, and trim support assembly. Before you begin adjusting glass, make sure the weather strip is installed properly. Roll the window up and loosen the nuts and pry the glass until it seats in the weather strip across the top of the door frame. Next, tighten the glass track screws. Tighten the glass to plate and channel assembly attaching nuts. Move the trim support and stabilizer assembly in until the stabilizers contact the glass and tighten the bolts. And that about covers it for this session. Be sure to read the reference book for additional information, especially the coverage on the new heated backlight for intermediate station wagons.